Hi, I'm Mal from the Money Study, bringing another episode of the Take 10 Challenge, and we're up to number 30. And this is all about non-concessional contributions. Just a different way getting your money into superannuation. And before we kick off, there's the disclaimer: facts, it's figures, it's information, it's not advice. So, non-concessional contributions. Up until now, we've been talking about the situation where we put money into a super fund and we can get a tax deduction for doing it. Now we're going to talk about putting money into super where we don't get a tax deduction for doing it. And people sort of say, well, why would I bother? Why would I bother putting money into super? I'm not going to get any tax benefit. Well, of course, you do get a tax benefit once the money's in the super fund, because well, for most people anyway, because the super funds, as we know, only get taxed at 15%. Whereas if you've got money outside of super, that investment will be taxed at your normal rates. So as long as you're in a tax bracket where you're paying a higher level than super, then there's the advantages of getting the money into super. The downside, of course, is that it's locked up until you've hit these retirement ages and when you can access your super and so forth, which we're going through in more details as time goes on here. But the idea is that, yes, by loading up onto our super fund, we're getting tax benefits on while we are still accumulating our money. And of course, when we get to retirement, for most people, we can convert our money into these tax-free income streams to live on. And we need to get the money in first, because you can only start those income streams tax-free from money that got into super in the first place. So we usually try to load up our super closer and closer we get to retirement, so we've got sufficient then to provide us for our wonderful retirement. So all we're doing here is literally moving money from a bank account. So we've got some money in the bank and we say, yep, that probably would be better, possibly better in my super fund. In which case you can just do a BPay. You might be able to send them off a check, but we get this money into the super fund. Now there is no tax. Unlike the concessionals where we lose 15% as it goes in and then we claim our tax deduction, with this one there is no tax as it goes in. And it's all tax-free post 60 years, you pull it back out again. It just means that what goes in, what leaves your bank account is what goes in. So if you moved $50,000 from your bank account and sent it off to your super fund, $50,000 would indeed land into your super fund. So you can do a dollar amount and just say, do it, here you go, here's do a check, do a BPay. Or it could be a case that you've got your employer doing it for you. And so the employer can do either. You've just got to tell them whether you want the money going to your super fund as a concessional before tax or an after tax non-concessional. Totally up to you. You just tell your employer what to do, in which case it may be that you've decided to do a percentage of your salary. You might be doing 5% of your gross salary to put into super fund because you may be already capped out on concessionals. So you might be doing all right down to the dollar to get every last dollar you can getting tax deductions, but you've still got a bit of spare money. That's a nice problem to have, to put that extra money into our super fund after tax. So again, you can do regular payments, or you can change. If you've got regular payments, you can stop it, start it, increase it, decrease it, doesn't matter. It's totally up to you. It's driven by you when you want to put it in, how you want to put it in. So no taxes goes in, and of course tax-free in retirement. But of course, the government wants to put a restriction on us, and so yep, the maximum amount you're allowed to do in 1 year is $110,000. This non-concessional cap is 4 times the concessional cap. So the concessional cap currently is $27,500 here in February of 2024. And therefore, if the non-concessional cap is 4 times that, it's 110,000. Now, the expectation, as I say, was that the concession will go to 30,000, in which case the non-concessional, when that happens, will go to 120. So this thing will basically go up in $10,000 steps. So there's an annual cap for putting money in, but there's also a lifetime cap, meaning that once your super balance and this is across all of your super money. You might have 15 funds, you might have 2 pensions. It's money in pensions, money in super. Once all the total balance of all of your super accounts hits $1.9 million as of the 30th of June at the end of the financial year, then you are not allowed to make non-concessional contributions ever again. So once you hit $1.9 million, you are not allowed to do a non-concessional contribution ever again. Okay, now if you did, they will either tell you to take it back out again, this is the ATO, or tell you to take it out, or they will indeed tax you at the highest marginal tax rates, that we're talking nearly losing half of it in tax just for putting it in. Now, of course, some people have already got, as we know, 3 million, 10 million. I think there's someone out there with like $500 million in super. So obviously these people got money in before these caps, or they've had some investments in there that have actually gone gangbusters. So it's got way, way above this cap. But going forward, we really are going to see accounts, sort of hovering around about this super balance amount. Now, that balance amount will also go up. It was 1.6, it then went to 1.7, it jumped to 1.9. That cap goes up in like $100,000 steps, so it will go to 2 million and 2.1 and so forth. But at the moment, the cap is $1.9 million. $1.9 million. Now, if you go above 1.9, and then you have some share market issues and your account balance falls below it again, you're allowed to go back to doing non-concessional contributions. You are allowed to make non-concessional contributions up to the age of 75, whether you're working or not. Whether you're working or not. So if poor Aunt Mabel dies and you're 72, you could still get that money in within this annual cap and the lifetime cap as well. There is, however, what they call a 3-year rule, and we can actually borrow the cap from the next 2 years. So 110 this year, 110 next year, 110 the year after. So we could actually put in $330,000 in 1 year. 330,000 could go in 1 year. But if you did 330,000 in 1 year, then you can't contribute for the next 2. You've already capped yourself out for the 3-year period. If you put in $200,000 in 1 year, which is over the 110, then you would only be able to do 130 in the next 2. So you've got this cap of 330 over 3 years, but you could put it all in 1 year, put it in 2, but whichever way you do it, you're capped out at 330 over the 3 years there. No paperwork again required to do that. If you actually go over, the tax department know that you've now triggered this bring forward rule, and effectively they will then keep an eye on it to make sure that you don't put in too much in the next subsequent years there. So quite a handy thing. And of course, if you've got more money to put in, I say nice problem to have, remember that you could always do $110,000, let's say, on the 25th of June, just before the end of the financial year. There'd be nothing stopping you then from putting 330,000 in on July 1, because now we're into a new financial year, and we could trigger the 3-year bring forward. So we could actually get 110 in, in one fortnight. Fortnight later, we could get 330 in. So now we've got 440,000 in within a fortnight. And of course, if we've got a partner, they could do 440. So now we're talking $880,000 could be put into super within a fortnight. And of course, if we've got the concessionals are allowed on top of this, they're not one or the other, it's both. So you effectively could get another 27.5 for you and for your partner. So we can really get well over $900,000 into super between the two of you for a couple, basically within a fortnight, without sort of causing any grief. So where that 1.9 cap comes into play, where you cannot do non-concessionals, yes, you can still do concessional contributions. So if you can't put any more money, poor Aunt Mabel dies, are you still eligible, perhaps, to put some money in as a concessional. Okay, it's limited obviously by the 27.5 for those sort of contributions, but it still may be possible to squeeze a little bit more money in by using those rules. So quite a powerful tool. I mean, it used to be obviously years ago. You know, you could put $1 million back in the 70s and 2007 or whatever it was. It dropped to 500 and so forth, and now they dropped it right down. But it's now creeping back up again with this indexation. Anyway, it's just a case of deciding for you which is the best alternative, to be putting money in before tax or after tax. Join us again on another session.